Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Phoebe Elefante. I am the program director for the game design and interactive technology degrees here at Full Sail University. We are here for this episode of Tech Tuesday, making change through healthcare games. And with me is my esteemed guest, Mr. Kunal Patel. Welcome, Kunal. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure. I'm so happy I'm here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I would love for you, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into the business of founding or co-founding Indienomicon Foundation and what you guys are all about.
Sure. So my background is I was in computer science, software development, and it's almost typical of I think a lot of computer science students. You go through all these structures, data structures, algorithms, and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And some people will say like, am I going to write accounting software or am I going to go into games? And I would say the popular answer is usually going to games. It was really hard to get errors, making connections and things like that. And going through corporate America, doing other software development, I eventually started a game studio.
Oh, brave.
Yeah. It's like, let me make all this money and then let me burn it all by making a game, something, a creative force. But in doing all of that, I really found it to be the single most hardest thing that I've ever done. Building just regular software is already hard, but then, hey, let's just make it, add in like music and art and all these other things to it and make a cohesive product. It's really
all
hard.
Those skills that fall well outside the boundaries of computer science.
Yeah. And it's super hard. So it's like a startup plus all this creative aspect. And in starting a game studio, even as we were hiring people, even as we were building our product, I felt very alone. We had the 10 of us, but we were alone as 10 of us. And we were running into problems and we're like, where can we go to get this solved? And then we met some other game studios that were here within the Central Florida, Orlando region, and they felt the same thing. And it was like, oh, you're alone? We're alone. And then we started getting to know each other. We're like, wow, this is really great. It's like community really matters. And we held a game jam, which is like video game terms for hackathon or like a rapid prototyping event. And we did that back in 2013.
Wow. Okay. So you've been around for quite a while.
Yeah, that's really when the community started. And then we were like meeting 100 people. It's like, wow, I had no idea you even existed. And you live in the same city and we can be friends. And that's where that Indienomicon community first started, was through that game jam. And it was just from building a game studio and feeling alone from that and not feeling alone when you meet other people.
Yeah. Most definitely. So for those people who don't really know what a game jam is, could you maybe describe what a game jam is? And I think we actually have a gallery of images from the particular game jam that we're here to talk about today, the Mega Health Jam, the 2024 edition, I should specify, which took place on September 6th through the 8th of 2024. It was a total of 10 teams participated, right?
Yeah.
And you gave out a number of prizes, which I'll let you describe. But again, maybe just a little bit of description for like what a game jam is, what it consists of.
Yeah. So, in a game jam, we invite a wide variety of developer talent. And that means there's programmers, there's 2D artists, 3D artists, designers, musicians, sound, writers. There's really all the elements that go into building software, building a game, and subject matter experts, people that might know about certain major industries and things like that. And the aim here is you're going to build a game within 48 hours, and which seems seemingly impossible.
I mean, it's hard not to giggle when you drop a fact like that, because as we know, it takes in a lot of cases years to design and actually get a video game to market. So
it seems it's definitely some cognitive dissonance that happens, when people hear that. No matter whether you're in games or you're outside of it, everybody goes 48 hours of video game. What?
Right.
And even the people that are in game development will even do a double take sometimes and go like, wait a second. But truly, that it's by design and by nature that creates, what we're looking for,
Yeah.
out of a game jam. That, hey, 48 hours to rapid prototype a video game, all these different talent bases. You're all going to basically form little mini startups, mini studios for a weekend, pitch something, build a team, design it,
Yeah.
make it, present it.
Yeah.
And out of it, you get some things that are pure gold and some things that are not gold.
Right.
Nice way to put it.
That is a nice way to put it. Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that is really cool to note about the Mega Health Game Jam that we're be talking about some of the projects today is, you can certainly see in the images, as they scroll through, that you have really small teams. So it's not really these giant groups of people that are doing things at a highly refined level. It is really quite scrappy. It is, a lot of kind of like, how do we make this work as fast as possible? Which I think is why, there are lots of images in the gallery of people, multiple people looking at the same computer, kind of like, what do we do now? How do we solve this problem?
The constraints that exist definitely spark innovation and they move things along, and it's definitely stressful. People will think like, how can we solve this? But what you're seeing on screen, like that's par for the course.
Right.
If you're not like this, something's going wrong. I think those constraints is what inspires innovation, what inspires the best ideas, and the time constraints definitely help make things happen. You cut things away, and people will. It's a pressure cooker. People will be very emotional, but they'll also become the best of friends, and they'll get on the same wavelength. And then, you're building really innovative things. You're building things that you didn't think were possible.
Yeah. So like the structure of the Mega Health Jam, from a Friday to a Sunday night was, kickoff Friday night. And that's really where everybody gets an opportunity to find out like what the jam is going to be about. They meet their teams.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a bunch of different ways to go about doing that. Some people in this case, like came with their team already ready to go, with people in certain positions expecting to do certain kinds of work, but a lot of people just showed up Friday night kind of like, hey, I'm just here. I can do a thing or do a couple of different things. And I'm just kind of willing to give it a try, which is really cool. And then, of course, day 2 is that day where everybody is grinding all day, for what you guys started at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And cranked out until close to midnight. Yeah. About that on Saturday, and then everybody shows up as early as they can on Sunday, depending on where they left things Saturday night. Right.
Yeah.
And then they, they go through that like last minute, like, how do we just make a build? Like, is this going to be playable? Is this going to,
the core basics.
Right. Exactly. And then they have to, and then what's the presentation consist of? What do they have to have like by the end of the jam?
So by the end of the jam, you want to have a working project. That's the ideal thing. But you're able to demonstrate your game, what problem is it solving or addressing, and then there's other aspects to it. Is this fun? Is it engaging? Does it deliver the subject matter? Like, is it showing how it can help healthcare in some way for whatever audience it is? And you play this live demo, and you can also have a presentation that says, why did you choose this? What would you do next if you had more time? And people will talk about what were some of the pitfalls, what were things that they discovered along the way.
Yeah.
And it just proves that you can get to 80% of a lot of things very fast.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. A lot of professionals will say that the 90% of the work is in the refinement, but that's only 10 to 20% of the actual process. Right.
Yeah.
So what is the focus of the Mega Health Jam specifically?
So Mega Health Jam came together, because at least within our region here in Orlando, Central Florida, there was this area called Medical City. And many of us were hearing, medical city this, medical city that, and it's like, what is this place?
Yeah.
And it's a city called Lake Nona, and it has a high concentration of healthcare companies, startups, hospitals that are all there.
And that's where the jam this time
That's
was
where it took
hosted,
place,
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it came together because, and Mega stands for medical plus gaming, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like a little Easter egg right there.
So smart.
Yeah. And so
know that.
it's a little found thing that you'll come across.
I just thought it was, mega,
It's mega,
awesome.
yeah. That's like the two sides of it, right? It's like it's mega, and then it's
Right,
also
double meaning,
medical
for
plus
sure.
gaming.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in healthcare, which it's almost like there's universal truths of we all need healthcare, but many of us also hate healthcare. There's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of red tape, and no doubt, you have to have a lot of care and process and protocols within it, because it's many times life and death. But there's a double-edged sword to this in that it can also be very harmful by the status quo that exists.
Yeah.
And if there's ever a group that I've come across that doesn't care about status quo or they buck that trend, it's game developers. Like, you can tell a game developer, well, hold up right there. Like, this is going to take a whole lot more time, or you shouldn't do this or do that. It's like a lot of these people are sometimes crazy. And they're like, no, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try. I'm going to do it. I'll show you.
That's just throwing down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Like, all right, challenge accepted. Yeah.
So, part of this is bringing game developers as a change agent into healthcare.
Yeah.
To a group of people that maybe don't even have time to think that things could be better.
Yeah. Well, and also, plenty of medical professionals, I'm sure, have been able to identify places where there are problems in healthcare or medical technology or communication with patients or whatever the subject matter might be, but they don't necessarily have an outside of that particular expertise box kind of solution, right? So bringing people with game development expertise into the room really changes that perspective.
Absolutely.
So I know you had a bunch of themes that were specific to this year's Mega Health Jam. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the themes are and how they play into the sort of shaping of the projects?
Yeah. Constraint breeds a lot of innovation. And by that, if you just say, hey, let's make some healthcare games, it's so broad.
Right. Blank page panic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, there's the saying, like, you can't edit a blank sheet. And so you need something, some guidelines, some guardrails here. And we do have broad guardrails. Like, if people really wanted to go down a certain pathway, like something for children's health or longevity or things like that. But this particular year, we had additional challenges that came in from some of our sponsors and people within the healthcare community. So we had a category for mental health. We had things for gamifying patient health. So, are you actually going to do something? Are you going to do something for your health? Are you going to follow doctor's orders? Are you going to adhere to the doctor's orders? So, but if that's gamified, you might actually do it. Using AR, VR, something immersive for healthcare, and especially maybe pre-surgery. If you're trying to explain something, how something works, how something complex like the human body works or a particular surgery, maybe if you can walk around it, look at it from an immersive way, you'll understand it better, and that keeps your spirits up. That's needed future of work. Like, how are we actually going to convince children that this is the field to actually go into? Right.
Well, and there's a real shortage in trained medical professional availability worldwide. So it's certainly a problem that people in the medical industry are thinking quite a lot about. Yeah. I'm sure game developers aren't thinking about it.
No.
But what a great problem for them to, put their skills to.
Yeah. Us on the outside of not being in healthcare, we're not actual physicians or nurses or healthcare admins. We just think, oh yeah, hospitals there. Oh yeah, doctors are there. Like, they'll always be there. They'll be there whenever I need them. I'm sure I'll have to wait in the lobby a little bit, but no, it's a big problem that there's not going to be enough doctors, and no matter how much we make certain things efficient, you need these people. Yeah. And so getting to people earlier and explaining what it is and how it can be better will make a big difference.
Right.
And other things that were important were not waiting to talk about certain things in healthcare, like conversations that family members could have with each other, questions you would just never think to ask your mom. What could spark that along? And we also had something for improving the patient experience. So not everything is, hey, this game developer is going to solve everything in healthcare, but there's lots of problems that are sprinkled throughout that could be improved.
Yeah. Very cool. So we, just talking kind of more generally, like, why would you think that games, right, or game developers working on these problems would be a good fit for coming up with solutions? I mean, I know you said obviously they, don't like to go with the status quo and are always kind of poking holes in whatever the system is that they're, kind of participating in, right? That's definitely a big part of game design, is being able to understand and manipulate systems and, bend them to your will. So why games? Why, in what way is that kind of valuable for the healthcare field?
Well, I think this goes back to a fundamental truth about humans. I just have a new baby as of 4 weeks ago, and I'm kind of seeing this all over again, that, and I have a
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm now just getting a couple hours of sleep. And I have a 5-year-old, and looking at them, it only reinforces something that I kind of knew, and it's that you learn through play.
Yeah.
And this somehow gets forgotten when we become grown-ups, that we think, oh, I just have to read a book and I got to study this. And the whole college cramming sometimes experience makes you forget that it's through play and trying something over and over again and having fun with it is actually what teaches you something and what makes it stick and makes it become a habit.
Yeah.
And even software groups and people out there talk about gamifying this and gamifying that. It's like, well, what is that? Turning things into a game. Well, if you can have a game that covers the subject matter well, and you can play it and you can have fun and you can understand it and it sticks with you, well, then you're part of what's making healthcare better.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why not get game developers into this?
Yeah. Well, and also there's a pretty large audience for games. And so people who aren't necessarily thinking about topics in healthcare or even how to solve their own personal experiences, whether positive or negative, interfacing with the healthcare system, you're sort of opening up that audience and the people who have some investment in the results, right, by making games available. Because, I might be scrolling through the app store and just pick a game because it looks cute and fun and, and play through and be like, like the game of Operation, when we were kids, right?
Right.
It's like, yes, it was analog and whatever, but it sure made, performing surgery look really exciting, right? And certainly gave, I'm sure, plenty of people their first, contact with thinking about healthcare and anatomy and, all of that stuff. And, I remember Operation like I played it yesterday, and it's been decades, So I think to your point that, it widens that audience, like, because people who are already in the medical field, they're not necessarily going to be the ones who have the bandwidth to solve the problems that we as users of a healthcare system, are going to want solved.
Completely. Right? And I don't mean to be offensive here, but I think of a lot of those people as being stuck on the hamster wheel. There's just so much need for what their skill sets are.
Yeah.
And so many patients that they have to see.
Yeah.
It's almost like they don't even have time to breathe.
Right.
And you have these people who are so skilled that they can't always take a moment to take a breath. How could you expect them to be the ones to be able to innovate and be able to create some, new solution?
Yeah.
So in a way, it's the game developers, these innovators that are there to help the industry as a whole, but even help the physicians and nurses and people that are in healthcare become better, doctors and clinicians
Yeah.
provide better care for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, I know with Full Sail's partnership with Advent Health University, we've prototyped a lot of projects that really are about providing healthcare professionals with improved training experiences or, contact with real life scenarios that they'll find themselves in and where they don't get to practice in real life.
Right.
The virtual option is the only option until they're actually in a real life emergency scenario, and you really, much like flying a plane, you really would prefer to have somebody have been in the air for some hours, before they're using some complex piece of medical machinery or something like that. Right. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think a couple of the projects from the Jam did focus on training, simulation kinds of experiences for people who were already experienced medical professionals or people who were on track to become medical professionals, and those were gamified sort of training experiences, right?
Yes.
So there is even a wide range in the results of something like a game jam that could, there's the sort of low-hanging fruit of like the App Store game. And then there's the super high-end, I'm an ICU nurse and I've already learned how to do all the basics and this is going to help train me in better bedside manner or something,
right.
Something much more nuanced that, it's hard to teach, but like you're saying, in a playful scenario, you can make mistakes without negative consequences happening in real life. Right. So becomes a great vehicle for people from outside as well as inside the medical industry.
100%.
It's learn something.
In healthcare, a lot of people can become very resistant to change or squeamish about trying something new because the consequences can sometimes be so great, like life and death.
Stakes are high.
The stakes are high. But innovation and making things better, you need to have the ability to fail. So how do you solve that? I feel like, having games, digital experiences, immersive experiences, the things that we enjoy in games of like, well, I failed, I respawned, I tried it again, I tried a different way.
Yeah.
People don't get to enjoy that in real life. But if they had a game or they had some, serious game or some experience, they can have those mental repetitions.
Yeah.
And, it is not related to healthcare or anything like that. But I just think back to this Mike Tyson quote, like of everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Classic. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, when you're in the middle of surgery, or you're dealing with some high pressure situation, you might have studied everything, you might have memorized something, but when the patient is screaming or the family members are crying or, the some variables have changed, you may not have the ability to be as efficient as you normally think you would be.
Yeah.
So I really feel to make better healthcare environments and better healthcare professionals, you need this. You need the ability to try it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in terms of like what the developers get out of the experience as well. But I think, putting in the repetitions is a big part of why game jams are so valuable for the people who are actually making the projects. We do actually have, there were a number of winning projects, and we do have a couple of, there was a wide range of projects. Several of them were made from AR, VR, but we do have a couple of placeholders or title screens or gameplay capture from some of the games that were included in the Jam or resulted from the Jam. Mm-hmm. Looks like this first one is one called Seasonal Flow, one of my favorites. Did this one win a prize? Or
it did. It was a special challenge that was there for this year for women's health.
Nice.
Which is something that you would think maybe should get more attention, considering half the human population, 4 billion people are women.
51%.
51%.
The majority.
Yeah, the majority.
Yeah.
So you would think that things related to women's health would be more important or more top of mind, but it's not. And a lot of this stuff, when it's not top of mind, can lead to problems that,
Yeah.
that didn't have to be there. Didn't have to be there. So, you know, women's physiology is very different going from childhood all the way to the end of their lives. The body changes so much, and this game highlights that. It helps
Yeah.
teach you how your body is going to change, and not even say if you're a female playing the game, but even if you're male playing the game, well, now I might actually know what's happening a little bit with the women that are in my life, whether
Yeah.
it's my wife or my mother or my grandmother or my daughter. Like,
Right.
I now have things to think about.
Theoretically, even non-female people have relationships with female people.
Oh, yes,
and
of
would
course.
want to know this information.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
people even themselves, like, just don't even think what question to ask of themselves.
Sure. Indeed. Let's take a look at the next slide. The next game. Oh yeah. Coworker Joe saves a life. So this was a really ambitious project, a really cool project. I loved the concept for this one, but we really only have the menu screen because this game, did it get completed? Did it get playable by the end of the jam?
I think they did complete it, but typical of a game jam and only 48 hours. It was just working, but then something happened and,
Oh, no.
and there was some bug and then it didn't play. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But the game jam is a place to get as far as you can. And if something breaks, that's okay. You can fix it afterwards. Yeah. But it was a case of a really great subject matter, that teaching someone what to do in a high pressure situation, how to help your coworker,
right?
If something's happened, how to administer medicine. And the thing is, now it exists, and it is something that'll be shared after the event. But the horrors and the fun of it is that you never know if this game is going to be complete or not. You see people working so furiously, but you never know. It's like down to the last second sometimes.
Yeah. And this team had a pretty good number of experienced developers, and they just like ran into a fatal error with the VR packaging of the project or something like that, and it just didn't run.
Doesn't matter how experienced you are. Sometimes things happen.
Right. Exactly. What's next up? I was gonna say, oh yeah. So this is a screen grab from Ambulance in Space, which was one of my favorite pitches from the kickoff night. Yeah. So we didn't really mention it at the beginning, but the way that many of the teams were formed this time around was individual game designers, or really anybody could go up to the front and pitch a concept. Yeah. An Ambulance in Space was one of the funniest, most charming pitches, and gathered a bunch of the participant, sort of freelance participants onto the team, with the idea of developing people who might want to be EMTs or work in an ambulance in an emergency situation in the future. And I just remember this part from the designer so specifically, where do things in the future happen? They happen in space. So of course, Ambulance in Space, made perfect sense. Yeah. So this is just a 3D game. I can't remember whether this one was, I'm pretty sure this one was made in Unity.
I think so.
Yeah. But that was a really cool team of just kind of a bunch of people from all over.
And that's the nice thing about a game jam, is that maybe some teams do show up where most of them are already formed. But others, it's like, hey, I am a programmer and I have nobody else on my team. I am looking for, a 2D artist. I'm looking for a writer. I'm looking for this or that. Yeah. And you lobby for your team. And if the game that you're pitching is fun enough, and you're excited about it, you're going to bring people to your team. It's the way the universe works.
Yeah.
And people thought this was funny and it was fun. And the subject matter, was valid too.
Yeah.
That what do you do in all of these different paramedic situations?
Right.
But in space.
Right.
That you're going to learn along the way, and you're going to laugh along the way.
Exactly. How about what was up next? Oh, yeah. Okay, so this game is called Missing.
Yeah.
This one was a very cool project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of these subject matters that many of us are going to face in our lives, not necessarily even of ourselves, but our family members, our family members that are aging, that they start experiencing symptoms of Alzheimer's or dementia of some kind. And how do you treat that? How do you handle it? How do you cope with it?
Yeah.
It's a lot of information to take in.
Yeah.
And the more you kind of understand it, the more you're going to be able to help your loved one.
Right.
That was the nice thing about this game. It's like,
yeah.
easy
I
to
also,
dive into.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I love that the much like some other games that are sort of designed to help you live an experience that maybe you personally don't have. I thought they did such a cool sort of twist on this mechanic of, every time you enter this room, one of the items in the room is missing.
Yeah.
And the goal of the game is you still have to try to accomplish daily tasks without being able to locate these items that are critical for completing the task.
Yeah.
Right. I think that the main challenge was to try to find the cell phone, and you had to try to navigate by utilizing the different elements of what was on screen. But every time you accomplished a task, that item that you used would now be gone from the screen. And so, you're sort of, as a player, it creates this frustration,
Yeah.
right? Sort of counter to what you would expect from like a fun, playable experience. But you're very much living that frustration of someone who is having these memory issues.
Yeah.
Right. And what a cool way to communicate that, to a player, and certainly to somebody who's a caregiver or, family member of someone who suffers.
Some caregivers sometimes come into that role and don't even know how much is going to be expected of them. And, to play this, to feel the frustration, even a fraction of it, teaches you more empathy.
Right.
And again, more mental repetitions for you to go through this. If it can help put the right context around the caregiving that you're going to be giving,
yeah,
that's something that a lot of people don't get.
Yeah. One of the things that I felt like this game was such a good example of, you had all the themes, right? But many of them hit more than one theme without really intending to.
Yeah.
Right. So like this one was, responsive to the theme of caregiving, right? But it also speaks to the caregiver's mental health. It absolutely speaks to, like you're saying, just generating empathy between the caregiver and the person experiencing whatever the illness is, whatever the limitation is. Yeah. And they did such a good job doing that with this game. Yeah. What's up next? Oh, Perfect Sip. This one was a good one. Another VR project, a very ambitious VR project.
Yeah. This one, again, like it goes towards, if you were to suffer an accident or you're going through rehabilitation and now you're going to be in a wheelchair, that sometimes, for the first time you're going through this experience and you don't necessarily know how to live that life.
Right.
Or maybe you're with someone that is going through that and you don't know what they're going to go through. Another opportunity to pick up on that, but in a fun context.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this particular screen grab doesn't show the adorable 3D cats that mass around you in this cat cafe, right? Where you basically play as a sort of shop person in Perfect Sip, but you are in a wheelchair throughout the game, and so you need to perform the tasks. And this one was a really cool project, but difficult to get screen capture for because of the way that it was designed. But really a very charming illustration of, still being able to complete tasks and sort of live a normal existence, even with the discomfort of having to learn how to navigate and to, sort of move around in a different way. Yeah. This one was really cool. And what's next? Oh yeah, this was so this was Rehab Realm. This is gameplay, an example of gameplay from Rehab Realm. And they took on the challenge of, patient commitment, right?
Right.
Of sort of training patients to actually do the tasks
Stick to
that
doctor's orders. Yeah.
right, exactly. Um,
And it was fun. You're in this environment and you come across things and you are given instruction on exercises to do.
yeah,
And with the power of sensors that are in some of these devices, it can actually know you're doing it.
yeah, exactly. That was true. This use of sensors and sort of and articulating patient data was one of the things that I think was featured in the winning project. I don't know if that one's the one that's up next. Let's see. Oh, okay. Third place.
Yeah.
Winners of the third place
Silly
overall. Yeah. Silly Chef.
Yeah, this was fun. And also, at least for me too, very timely. I received like a health diagnosis a few months ago. Well, I shouldn't say diagnosis. There was a risk that I was going to have to have some dietary changes.
Mm-hmm.
Something was just not right with me, and I was trying to go to all these different doctors to figure out what was happening.
Mm.
And during that period of time, there were different dietary restrictions that I had to take on. Like I couldn't eat this or couldn't eat that.
Yeah.
And maybe I had, and then some of them were conflicting.
Oh my gosh.
Perhaps it's like, okay, I can do this, but I can't have this much fiber, or I can do this, but I can't do this. And it was maddening. Like
Yeah.
I was like, it felt like I needed to hire a dietitian during this period of time while I'm trying to figure out what's happening with my health. But this game would have been so much better because it actually teaches you how to prepare meals for people with various dietary restrictions.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I loved in the presentation with this team was, so this is another VR game, and as you're cooking, very similar to I'm blanking on the name of the actual suite of games, but it's one of the early VR projects that was on the HTC Vive, and it was sort of a similar scenario, but you realize very quickly that as you're kind of grabbing ingredients and trying to work with these things, it's not very good.
Mhm.
Like you're not very accurate at doing the things in VR. So, the pot will fall over and, you can kind of drag it across the counter and,
Yeah.
it gets really silly really fast. And, I think one of the questions that was presented to the team was, why make it silly if this is such a serious issue for people? And, especially for people who have severe allergies to stuff or need to avoid inflammatory foods or something like that,
Yes.
that like can really trigger severe health complications for them, why make it silly? And I loved that their response to that was, when you're living with dietary restrictions, it takes like all the fun out of preparing food,
Yeah.
all of the joy out of cooking, all of the sort of pleasure out of the eating experience. And so, they couldn't change the dietary restrictions,
Yeah.
of course, because that had to be accurate to make it still effective and, teachable, right? But they made the mechanics of it really fun and really silly and really dynamic and a lot of movement. And because of that, it still conveyed
Yeah.
this really fun, like lighthearted, silly experience, right?
All the science and the medical knowledge was there, but you had the right context around it, and it was fun. It was
Yeah.
silly, and it made you laugh.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember things if I laugh along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. So our second place winners, I have to brag a little bit because on the second place winning team, we had 4 of the 6 members of the team are either Full Sail alumni or current Full Sail students. So big shout out to you guys for winning second place. I was so proud. I got to be there over the weekend as a mentor, so it was great seeing Full Sail represented and obviously having them place second. We actually have a video, some gameplay video of their project, Nimble Nursing. Can we show that video? Because it's pretty cute.
It's adorable.
Yeah. And I loved, so they were a mixed bag team. I believe Nick, who was the lead designer, pitched his project.
Yeah.
And then, several freelancers sort of formed around his game idea, which was basically like an ICU nurse's version of Diner Dash.
Yes.
Super quick gameplay. Okay, here we go. Here, it's going to get started.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, the team mentioned that they talked with a subject matter expert about some of the details of how to design the game, time, sort of the time parameters and like how many patients your typical nurse would see.
Nice.
When they're assigned to an ICU floor. So even that, like, even though this is obviously very cute, it is accurate in the sense of like the relative time to do certain tasks is represented, the actual number of patients that a nurse is going to see, and then obviously the sort of lack of awareness of the individual, patients, not worrying only about their own care, right?
Yeah.
As you would, and not really realizing the kind of full picture of the pressure that they're under.
Definitely a spinning plates kind of situation where
oh no, there's multiple unhappy patients now.
Yeah, you're doing the healthcare things like doing medication or doing procedures, but patients' temperament matters. Are you keeping them happy or not?
All better.
Yeah, we talked about how even though this was targeted to the kind of like future workforce, like this would be a really fun game for kids to play.
Yeah.
To sort of see if nursing would be of interest to them. Oh no, there's so many unhappy people. Your shift is about to end.
Thank you so much.
Right, but that it kind of again like hits a lot of the requirements, right? Of like, yeah, it'd be a great game for kids to play and be like, I'd be an amazing nurse, right?
Good change.
But also, what a great game to like have on your tablet in the hospital.
Yeah.
And be able to see, be able to play the game while you're waiting for your nurse, for your care, right? And to be able to say, okay, I understand you're not just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, right? Like you are trying to get the job done as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. And, there's 20, 30 other people that rely on you, so literally to be able to have that experience in the hospital and to be able to, like calm your anxiety because you're understanding like what the time pressure is. And also on the opposite side, for somebody who is a nurse or who is working in some medical tech field where they have to deal with this kind of patient, impatience. No pun intended.
It definitely, you have, these nurses and you have the patients and there's anxiety going on between the both of them. And you have a patient that may not know how to communicate their needs even.
Yeah.
So going through this, if they have a better understanding, they'll have a better understanding of their own needs, of what's even possible.
Right.
Like you don't even know sometimes what to even ask a nurse. And the nurse can't get into a patient's head entirely.
Right.
So playing a game like this might even lead someone to go like, you know what? Yes, I do need this medication. And yes, I do need this and that. And I might have to wait for a while, but maybe I could get a warm blanket right now, and that's going to keep my spirits up, for the next several hours. That's completely valid too.
Yeah.
And a game like this would actually show you that's necessary and true.
Yeah. Well, and this is also a great example of how, you can have a vision for a really elaborate, very complex game, that is what you're starting with. But in 48 hours, you're obviously not going to develop all of that content. And so, having to narrow in on the things that will most effectively show you what the game could be like.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so they have a couple of mini games in that playthrough. And, the full vision was that each one of those tasks would be its own
little mini,
sort of little mini game. Right. And that each one of those mini games would in some way be tied to the length of time that each one of those tasks sort of takes. And, like drawing blood is infinitely longer task than giving somebody medication, right? Or just checking in to say hello or giving them a blanket, right? So, just a great example of how you're not always going to have the bandwidth to make everything that you want, but you can still make something that's a really highly communicative way to say what your idea is, right? And that's sort of the whole point of making a prototype.
Present the vision.
Right, exactly. Let's take a look at the first place winners, which was a really cool project. I think it's the one. Wait, go back one to the Medtech VR. Sorry. I can't forget this one. So this was much like the Nimble Nursing game. This one was, they had a huge scope at the very beginning. And they had to, very quickly over the course of 24 hours, really minimize.
They'll have on a Friday.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, and, I think what was cool about this team was they said, you know what, we're just going to prototype what we can for right now. We already know that we're going to keep working on this project, so it was like they really used the game jam as kind of like their super intensive prototyping kickoff and sort of said, this is just the start. Our goal is to continue to develop this thing. And obviously in VR, there were lots of obstacles, lots of technical problems to solve. Yeah, exactly. But still a super cool project and, very much tied into the data and, sort of performing tasks accurately.
Yes.
Right. And I'm sure that was a lot of where they got held up in the programming stuff. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you for going back. So the winning project, the first place project now. Yeah. So here's the 3D model. And this is how the player character is represented on the screen in a 1942 style air battle.
Yeah.
And then actually, if you guys go to the next slide, you can see the custom built controller that this team designed. So the idea, Kunal, I'll let you speak to this game project.
So this team definitely not only took on like the actual software side of things of making a game, the visuals and all that, but they did a lot of like physical engineering too. They went to Home Depot, they kind of went sifting through the trash. They found different wooden dolly wheels and things like that, and they basically crafted a makeshift wheelchair.
Yeah.
And they built that, and then they purchased some sensors that would detect when you're actually turning the wheel. And again, like not always having the most perfect set of tools and everything that you need. So even if they're using Unity, they weren't waiting for like a Unity official plugin to something. They actually took this sensor and were able to send the data into Unity to be able to bring right into the game without having to have some official plugin.
Yeah.
So they really crafted this whole thing, and this wheelchair was the controller. For this game.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought was really cool was, they included a sensor for the person's legs in addition to the wheels, right? And so even some of the moves, so obviously in an airplane, you have, I will never remember the 6 degrees of movement off the top of my head, but you have this one, I think it's called pitch and yaw, right?
Right, it's
These
like roll,
ones
pitch,
where you kind of go to the side. Yeah, right, exactly. Roll, pitch, and yaw. Thank you. Not my area of expertise, obviously. But they even took that into account, and by adding the sensor to the person's legs, they even created like a scenario where in the wheelchair, you'd like pop a wheelie and, lift your legs up into the air, and that would cause the plane to
actually
lift up. And, and it was just, what a great way to incentivize somebody to be playful in a wheelchair, which for most people is a very serious, we kind of think about it if you're not in one,
right?
We think about it as a very serious proposition of trying to transition into life using one.
Yeah.
Right.
Here, the thing is you could be in a wheelchair permanently or temporarily. And, if you do make things fun along with it, your spirits will be better. you'll actually stick to what the exercises are
Yeah.
that you need to get better or to deal with it, and having the sensor on your leg, having the sensor on the wheels. The interesting thing with this project was they really took data
Yeah.
and metrics and analytics like to heart.
Yeah.
It's like you can't manage what you can't measure.
Right.
And so here they were actually pumping it into charts, so you could see how long you were playing. You could see what the reported pain level was. You could see how things change over time.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So you would actually play it, but now your doc actually has something to take in.
Yeah.
Like real data.
I was going to ask you what it was that put this project, clearly the first, the highest prize winning.
Yeah.
Was it the data and analytics that they drew from it?
I believe so. And that's what we heard from the judges, that there's things to be impressed by. Sure, that hey, you built like a wheelchair on top of a game. That's impressive. The game itself was fun. That hey, you're in this in-air dogfight, like with flying through the air, but you're using this wheelchair. That's fun. But then the thing that you could actually track your progress, your improvement, your range of motion.
Yeah.
You actually see yourself getting better.
Yeah.
And this data is being recorded. So it's actually very encouraging to play it continuously. But then, your clinical team, your doctors, your rehab specialists, for them to be able to see how things are improving as well, that seemed very impressive. And that's very important, to that healthcare community.
Yeah.
Where it would be nice to be prescribed a video game instead of
better than some exercises, I imagine. Yeah, most definitely. Well, that was the tack a couple of the projects took, but this one, because of that data collection and communication, that was really what made it such a valuable piece for the medical portion of it, right? Yeah, really, really cool projects. So I guess, for the projects, whether they won or lost, right? I mean, I'm sure, everybody came away from that experience of 48 hours. That was really fun. We came up with something cool. What's next? Right. So in your mind, for the teams who participated in this Mega Health Jam, or for, teams that participate in future jams, or, there's virtual jams running as we speak right now, probably dozens of them around the world, right? So you can kind of always participate in one, but, what's the next step? Where do you go with, your awesome healthcare game after the Mega Health Jam?
So this is really important. We do these jams and they're fun, by themselves. If you were to just go and then go back home and never go to it again, you would say, yeah, I had fun.
Yeah. And it does build the community, obviously.
It builds the
here
community
in Orlando and Central Florida, and that's the initial.
That's the initial thing.
Impulse, right?
That hey, you built these relationships, and when I take a look at the lens through how we make these jams and why they're important, we look at the fact that regionally we're connecting all these different things that we have here. This healthcare group, healthcare industry that's here. Working with the game development and simulation industry that's here, the relationships that form. People become best of friends there at this event, and I've seen people remain friends for a decade later, and that really matters. But you're working on this project, you're putting in all of this different R&D, and you have something that's working or maybe not working. After this, we want you to showcase it.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes trade shows or conferences that happen. For an example of healthcare, there's a conference called HIMSS, and it's a nationwide, actually worldwide healthcare conference that happens here in Orlando, and then sometimes it happens in Chicago. You'll have doctors, healthcare admins that are coming here, and that's a place where you could see the further progressed versions of these games.
Sure.
With this also happening in Lake Nona Medical City, there's a variety of healthcare events that are going on, and these games can be showcased there.
Yeah.
Now with a little bit more polish, and you could have hundreds of doctors and healthcare experts looking at these games, and then each of them may have an opinion about it, or insights into it, or or a need for it.
Yeah.
And any one of these conversations can lead to some other new step.
Yeah.
Some other new place to take this game.
Yeah.
And, in a way, it's creating this butterfly effect.
Yeah.
You're creating serendipity for the things that happen at the weekend as well as what happens afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we're always trying to get across to students is the need to just make games. Like if your ambition is to make games or to compose soundtracks or whatever it is, right? The way you're really going to get better is by doing it 1,000 times. And, the more game jams that you can participate in and the more times that you can, put in those reps for the hours spent solving those problems and making builds and solving those problems, the more times, the more prepared you're going to be. And then, of course, you have a whole bunch of other projects to say, these were the problems I solved. These are the skills that I used. And you could put that in your portfolio and put that on your resume. And so even if like that one project that you created out of that one jam doesn't go anywhere beyond that prototype stage, right? You still are developing the skills as a designer and as a developer and just adding to that, adding to your mastery for sure. I think we're getting kind of close to the end of the time here, but I did want to just ask, I know Indienomicon Foundation sponsors a number of jams every year, not just the Mega Health not just the Mega Health Jam. So what's coming up? What's the next jam that someone can participate in? Do you only do it in person? Do you have ambitions to do online jams? What's up next for Indienomicon?
So Indienomicon, Foundation, we put on these game jams. Initially, for the fun of it, for making connections and all those kind of things. But what we found is that there's all of these different major industries that have challenges and have needs and hard problems to be tackled. Yeah. So if you can do that and have fun, then why not do it? and so we have 4 jams that we put on during the year. In this particular year, in 2024, a lot of them came back to back. Just the timing worked out that way. Yeah. So we had Mega Health Jam earlier this month. Early next month in October 4th through the 6th, we have
next weekend, actually.
Next weekend.
Next weekend, not this coming, but next weekend.
That's like stressful even thinking about it a little bit. But we have All Hallows Jam. Yeah. So making scary games, scary experiences, and that's just fun by itself. Yeah. But in that instance, you're thinking of themed entertainment. Right. So, whether it's theme parks, whether it's experiences, museums, haunted houses. These are things that the entire world has and puts out there to engage and make, have fun. And this is where you can prototype. You can experiment with new ways to scare people. Like, what if you had certain boundaries where this game has to be G-rated? This game has to be in pure daylight. Yeah.
That's my style.
Yeah.
Of scary is just
pure daylight.
Not scary.
Yeah. The unexpected. Yeah. Right. It's not always just like Freddy Krueger or something like that. It's other things that you're not expecting. And so we're going to have that. So over a weekend, come join the All Hallows Jam. Come with a team or join a team and make a scary game and present it Sunday. And then those games now exist and maybe you can share it throughout all of October, the Halloween month. Yeah. And after that, we have Indie Galactic Space Jam, which was the first major jam that we did. Okay. And probably the most popular one, and it's coming back after a few years. Our last one was in 2021. So people have been really chomping at the bit to have this again. Yeah. So November 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, we're going to have that event. There's going to be a social that you can come and be a part of.
And that's on the 14th. So anybody can go to the social, whether you want to participate in the jam or you're just a little curious. Right. Or
you don't have to be a developer, or you don't have to be working for NASA or SpaceX or in the space industry or a former astronaut, though those people will be there. Right. You don't have to be that. But on the social, you're just interested, you're intellectually curious, or you just like space. You can come to the social. And there's opportunities to come check out the final presentations on Sunday. So you can participate for All Hallows Jam, come to the final showcase. For Indie Galactic Space Jam, come to the social, come to the final showcase. And this is a way to really bridge these different silos that might exist out there within
Yeah.
our region.
Yeah.
So that there isn't that.
Yeah.
That we're all friends.
Yeah. And the community continues to develop. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. If you guys have any questions about game jams in general or Mega Health Jam specifically, or any other questions about game jams that Indienomicon Foundation sponsors, we're here to answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that you had originally slated, you mentioned 4 jams, but we talked about Mega Health, All Hallows, Indie Galactic, Space Jam, and then what's the 4th one?
Fourth one is Armed Forces Jam.
Okay.
So the military, defense industry, it's huge within Central Florida.
Most definitely.
And so the military simulation industry is large. And you would think, well, if that industry is so large, why do they need any help? Well, again, it's the approach of games that's different than how things are done normally when you're in that industry. And I think when you put these people from 2 different mindsets together, you get a better solution. So that will be coming in 2025.
Okay, nice. Very cool. All right. It says, our first question is, how do you ensure that your game or project balances both educational value and engaging gameplay for patients or caregivers? I mean, that is the question.
How do you balance the two?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've heard this saying, like, iron sharpens iron. Like, you have different personalities, strong personality types that are making this product together. One, you do have some boundaries set as well. You have healthcare professionals that are there, people that understand like what their day-to-day is.
Yeah.
And they will tell you if you're wrong. That's not how healthcare works. That's just not how it goes.
Right.
This is not how you do spine surgery. This is not how you do, they'll give you some of this context. So there's actual true science and evidence-based, research that goes into it. And with that knowledge, now you can put a fun context around it.
Yeah.
If there's no reason why the nurses or the physicians couldn't be puppies. They could be puppies, Dr. Puppy. But
I mean, there's Paw Patrol. There's
Paw
Doc
Patrol.
McStuffins.
Right.
These things can absolutely exist. Yeah.
But whatever it takes to make it fun and engaging, you can do that.
Yeah.
But you can also incorporate the true educational aspects of it, the true science aspect of it.
Yeah.
And it's what it's judged on as well.
Yeah.
So people are incentivized.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I think we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kunal. I had the best time at the Mega Health Jam, and I really look forward to mentoring at a future jam. And obviously, I hope to see all of you participating in game jams wherever you might be from and whatever your skill set is, and particularly the game designers and game developers here at Full Sail. I hope you guys are convinced that game jams need to be on your agenda. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here for Tech Tuesday. I am Phoebe Elefante and my guest, Kunal Patel, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.